All right, week 2 in the books. Another weekend of college football that did not disappoint. My brother's still a little bit under the weather. David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, here to join us. Look, we've got more to break down than Patrick Swayze and Dirty Dancing. I want to get to it. Make sure the comments are hot. Booster Club is hot. Get your questions and comments in. There's a lot going on. Bama, overrated. They're going to be all right. A&M, what happened? Maybe we should listen to Jake when you say play Max Johnson. There's also other problems. Auburn quarterback situation. Notre Dame goes down like a sweet muffin. David Cohn, what a weekend of college football. Again, we are legitimately not only 2 for 2, we're 3 for 3 because Northwestern Nebraska was a heck of a game. It's just a great time to be a college football fan right now.
You already know it's going to be a good Sunday.
Oh, without a doubt. Well, I want to start, and we're going to get to the comments a lot. Try and put a lot into a little bit of time with this Alabama-Texas game. First off, you have to take your hat off to Steve Sarkisian and Gary Patterson. You know, I really think Gary Patterson has come in and put his imprint all over this defense, the way they mixed fronts, the way they mixed coverages, the different type of blitzes they brought. They were very exotic. They were bringing it from different places, putting a lot of pressure on the Alabama offensive line. And when you have offensive linemen that are having to think about, all right, I got this guy, or this is going to happen, or they're going to twist, they don't think about the fundamentals and the technique they need to be perfect. Alabama really struggled. After about halfway through the first quarter, I know McClellan hit the home run, but Alabama struggled to get a consistent run game. And they, right now, Cone, you look at their skill position, they have dogs. I'm telling you, they do. But everybody out there that's going to be on Alabama, and they're going to say, and look, I'm from Auburn. You know me. I deep down, I would love for it to be true that Alabama wasn't very good. But I think we're kind of jumping the gun. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction that Alabama is somehow this team that's just average or they're going to lose 2 to 3 games. Because nothing is scarier than giving Nick Saban a reason to go in there to practice and say, look, I told you guys, you didn't want to listen. Now you see, we got lucky. We got very, very fortunate. But Bama is so talented, they can play like that and have the most penalties in the Nick Saban era and still win the game on the road in a hostile environment. Now, we can play the what-if game with Quinn Ewers just like we can play the what-if game with Colt McCoy. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. If my aunt had a different set of tools, she'd be my uncle. We all know that. That's not how it is. The game was played. I thought Hudson Card was really gutsy. But, Cone, what were your thoughts on the Alabama game?
Look, almost losing is better than almost winning. Right? Because if you almost lost, what'd you still do? They still won the football game. Now, there's 2 main questions after this. One, was Alabama overhyped with a Utah State team week 1 that wasn't that good? And 2, was Texas just that much better than we thought? With you talking about Steve Sarkisian bringing in Gary Patterson, which I said was the best transfer portal get of this past offseason. The answer to both of those questions could still be no, right? I mean, would it be that surprising to anyone if Alabama still won 12 or 13 games this season and won the national championship? Would it be that surprising to anyone if Texas still went 7-5, especially if Quinn Ewers stays out and then next year is Steve Sarkisian's year to break out? I don't think anybody would be surprised by both of those things, even though especially the latter one, I don't think is going to happen. I mean, Texas looked like Steve Sarkisian has cut a lot of the cancer out of that program. He's got it headed in the right direction. And I love what you said about Gary Patterson. Of course, we hate to see Quinn Ewers go out. They had Alabama on the ropes, even with the backup quarterback in there. So where does Alabama go from here? Look, a lot of the coaches around the SEC are licking their chops right now. I mean, you got Jimbo Fisher, Lane Kiffin, Mike Leach, Josh Heupel at Tennessee. All those guys are looking and seeing, man, if Steve Sarkisian can game plan Coach Saban like that, let me get my shot. But, I'll say it. Almost losing is better than almost winning. You get out of a hostile environment. You're 2-0 right now. And one thing, I don't think Alabama should travel anywhere without the $1 million band again, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And look, the time of game, there's a lot of things people will point to. Oh, well, Bama practices in the afternoon. You have to play an early game. That's not – Nick Saban's not trying to hear that. I'm not trying to hear that. That's an excuse. I will say, if you're Texas, though, this kind of feels to me like this could be a season ruiner. And Sark, ton of respect. All the Texas faithful, all the boosters, even though they lost yesterday, and I know moral victories aren't really victories, and there were some bad calls. I thought there were bad calls both ways. I don't think that was a dirty play on Quinn Ewers. You went airborne. You got tackled and slammed to the ground. You just happen to have your shoulder underneath. That was not a dirty play. That's a football play. Now, the missed pass interference early, the face mask at the end, that was big. The roughing the passer, they fixed that. I thought they ended up getting that call right if you look. I mean, I don't think it technically was a safety, but you can't miss 18-yard field goals against Alabama right before halftime. You can't do it. It's on you. And just leave a guy with the last name Auburn to do it against Alabama, even though he came back and hit that 49-yarder. That's great. Make the chippy, and now it gets really, really interesting late. But hats off to Steve Sarkisian. I think the Texas faithful should be excited. But look, you lost your quarterback and your other one's beat up. Okay, Quinn Ewers was balling. You know what it looked like to me, Cone? Like Colt McCoy balling in the national championship on the first couple drives before Marcel Darius ripped his spleen out through his back. So when I watch Quinn Ewers play, that kid's got it. All right, he's got it. Anticipation. He stood in there and took hits. He's mobile enough. I get it on Quinn Ewers now. There's some great young quarterbacks in college football. But if you're Texas, think about what Alabama has done to teams like this. Now, I know Florida State was ranked like number 3 or number 4 when they played them, but they ruined Florida State's season when they broke DeAndre Francois. They ruined Florida when they played Bama close a couple years ago, just broke their whole team. Texas is so beat up, especially at the quarterback position going forward. I mean, you were going to have to have Charlie from the chocolate factory going in to play quarterback if Hudson Card couldn't go. That poor kid woke up and had no idea. So, Cone, my last question on Texas is how do you think this affects them the rest of the season? Because I don't think this is a game where you're now super healthy. Do you go out and start beating the hell out of everybody?
I don't think this is a season ruiner. I think that Steve Sarkisian has this program headed in the right direction. I think yesterday, after you've heard month after month after month that the best you could possibly do is cover a 20-point spread, and that's what we thought too, right? I mean, there was nothing to lead us to believe that Texas could hang in this ball game, especially up front. Now, I wasn't entirely surprised by the first half just because, one, Steve Sarkisian's a great coach. Texas is a proud program. That's a hostile environment. You're going on the road. These kids are still 18 to 22. It's tied at halftime. Okay, I can see that. I looked over at Darby Lou. I said, look, this is where more talented teams and more physical teams impose their will in the second half. Don't be surprised if Alabama wins this game 35-10. Well, the second half is really what shocked me. I think that Steve Sarkisian and the Texas faithful are going to look at that and say, you know what? We can play with the best in the country. Of course, Jake, they need a competent quarterback to get in there, and we'll have to see what exactly comes back on Quinn Ewers. But I think Texas is undoubtedly headed in the right direction. On the hit on Quinn Ewers, of course it wasn't a dirty play. It shouldn't have even been a penalty. That's a football play. I mean, 10 years ago when I was playing, we wouldn't have even asked a question. It's just an unfortunate situation, and imposing your physicality on the other team is a big part of football strategy. You never want to play dirty, and that wasn't a dirty hit. But getting to the quarterback, hitting the quarterback several times so that you have a chance later in the game, in the third and fourth quarters, that's a big part of the strategy. Unfortunately, the kid went out early, and I hope that he comes back. I mean, we have not seen the last of Quinn Ewers, that's for sure. Oh, yeah. And then on the near safety call, you're right as well on that one. They got the call right. It ended up not being a safety, and it ended up not being intentional grounding. But despite that, it was still a very bad play from Bryce Young. I mean, the pressure was coming internally, straight up the middle. You cannot hold the ball in that situation, Jake. He has a habit of doing this. He has a habit of throwing off his back foot. I know he's a Heisman Trophy winner. He'll be a top 10 pick, all that kind of stuff. But Bryce Young has some deficiencies that he must work on.
Yeah, and what shocked me the most about that game, obviously offensively, Bama was struggling, and we'll get to Marshall Notre Dame in a second. We're going to answer all you guys' questions. I can see them. I was shocked that Alabama's pass rush could not get home consistently. That was the most surprising thing about yesterday to me. Not App State beating A&M, not even Marshall beating Notre Dame. I was shocked that Alabama's defensive line with Dallas Turner and Will Anderson and the monster from Mordor that is Jaheim Otis and the rest of the aliens that are running around the Alabama sideline could not get to the quarterback. And it wasn't like Utah State, right? Who, by the way, lost to Weber State yesterday. Actually got their ass kicked by Weber State yesterday. Maybe that's a little bit of a telling sign, but I was watching how physical Bama was and how fast they were. You can't hide that stuff even against a bad team. But when I looked at Alabama, they were having to start to try and manufacture pressure. I am shocked by seeing that. I thought Will Anderson and them were going to be able to get home. I thought the 3 freshman offensive linemen for Texas were going to struggle. If I'm a Texas fan, that's what I'm most proud of. I'm most proud of saying, I tell you what, fellas, we got 3 young cats up front that just went against the best defensive line they're probably ever going to see outside of the Monstars from Georgia, and you held up. And they got that dog in them. Like they were finishing blocks. They were holding up and punching and anchoring down at tackle. They had Will Anderson so frustrated, he was tackling guys who were getting up after the play was over. I tip my hat off to Texas in a lot of areas, David. But up front, the way that offensive line played, that to me is what's going to get Texas back quicker than any pass or any run or anything else. It's about the dudes up front. And the guys from Texas yesterday showed you that they can protect the city if they have to. Now, they didn't run the ball great, but you can't. That to me, that's asking too much. You ran it enough. You gave yourself a chance. You protected enough to have Quinn Ewers stand back there and be able to fire and deliver. I just think there's a lot of good momentum for Texas. It's just losing Quinn and having Hudson beat up. Don't freak out if this year ends up 7-5. Like, you can't freak out if it ends up 7-5 after that. And guess what? You know what you learn from this? You know when you schedule Bama, you don't. You play them in the playoff. Non-scheduling rule number 5.
I get it, but look at I get it, but college football was better yesterday because of this game. College football was better because of it.
I'm talking about selfishly.
I know, but look at what
Michigan's
doing. Look at what Michigan's doing. I mean, they don't play anybody for 6 weeks, man. Like, it's the big house is half empty. Like, I hate to see it. Yesterday was fantastic for college football, not only because of the football game, but because it was close, because it was a close game. Everybody was watching that game on the edge of their seats. Kudos to Texas. Yes, on your Will Anderson point, I think Will Anderson has taken himself out of the Heisman conversation now, just because it was already going to be, nearly impossible? You say impossible. I said nearly impossible. He was going to have a perfect season building off what he did last year. After yesterday's game, that many mistakes against that kind of opponent, I think he's taken himself out of the Heisman race, but I don't think he's taken himself out of the conversation to be the best football player in the country. He's going to learn from that. He's still going to be a top 2 draft pick. Look, Alabama is going to be fine. Jake, I just don't know about wide receiver and DB is where I'm looking right now. I've never seen Alabama wide receivers drop the football and make that many, not just dropping the football, but even not sitting down in zone coverage. You know, they were treating zone coverage as if it were man. They were staying on the move, and then you have the drop passes on top of that. But hey, that's why you have the greatest coach in college football history to help get that stuff right.
There's a few things I'll worry about with Alabama. The DB play down the stretch with Saban back there is not one of them. The wide receivers, they're just young. I mean, Jermaine Burton's got to get off the back of a milk carton in big moments. I mean, again, where are you? You're going to have to call John Walsh, 1-800-MISSING, to find Jermaine Burton. By the way, Alabama had 180 yards going into the fourth quarter and ended up with 189 yards and 10 points in the fourth quarter. They had 186 yards and 10 points the whole time. But hats off to Texas. Let's move on to Notre Dame. All right, Marcus Freeman. All right, Marcus. Y'all, we were talking about, hey, it's a good hire. Everybody's excited. You're 0 for Gopher right now. Yep. I mean, Marshall just thundering herded their ass on in there and totally dominated you guys. Now, real quick, Travis Elrod said, do I think Texas will win the Big 12? I do not. Not because I don't think their future's bright, but because Quinn is hurt. Cone, we look at Notre Dame's offense, right? We got done. I'm starting to ask some questions about Ohio State a little bit.
Yep.
There's a couple questions about Ohio State a little bit. My biggest concern with Notre Dame after that game and going into that game with Ohio State was watching Buckner throw the ball. That's great. You can run. But like I say all the time, my washer runs good. All right, but my washer can't throw a pass. It can't throw a dig. Notre Dame struggled to move the ball yesterday. I was surprised. If you actually look at the numbers and you really break this thing down, it's kind of wild. Buckner goes 18 of 32 for 201 yards and 2 interceptions. They bring in the backup Cone. He goes 3 for 6 with 20 yards and finally throws a touchdown and a pick. You had 3 turnovers. You look at the quarterback for Marshall was very consistent. The Columbia kid was 16 to 21 for 145 and a tud. But then you look at rushing. Marcus Freeman defense, right? All right, we're going to line up. We're going to be sound. We got after Ohio State. Laybourne had 31 carries for $163 and a touch with a long of 42. You had Keaton have 1 carry for 30 yards, obviously a long of 30. The leading rusher for Notre Dame had 44 yards, which means the starting running back for Marshall more than tripled the leading rusher for Notre Dame. Notre Dame, to me, just looked like a very average football team that got stuck in the mud on offense. And Marshall was very similar to App State, the way they went about it, possessing the ball. Notre Dame out of the playoff. You can go ahead and forget that. It's not going to happen. But the question is, Marcus Freeman's 0-3, David. He's the first. Brian Kelly's left. The winningest coach of all time ever in the history of Notre Dame. Now the new one's 0-3. Are you getting some Tyrone Willingham vibes from this one?
I don't know, because the locker room absolutely loves Marcus Freeman. You could see that when he got hired. That it's a different situation. Look, this is a top top 7 blue blood college football program all time, and you went out of your way to hire a coach that has no head coaching experience. That's going to come with some lumps. Either you're going to sit in there strong and you're going to take those lumps with your young head coach with 0 head coaching experience, or you're going to, move on too early after a season or two. I don't know what the Notre Dame faithful are going to do, but I do think Marcus Freeman is going to have success ultimately. This was a bad loss, though. You take the Alabama and Texas game out of the equation because that one shocked the world, right? Then after that, this was my most surprising game because I tried to warn the world about Appalachian State going to Texas A&M. I did tell people Georgia Southern would beat Nebraska, and that happened. I did not see this one coming just because, look, I have so much respect for the Buckeyes. And to see Notre Dame play the Buckeyes that closely in week 1, I really thought that Notre Dame, I knew they wouldn't be lethal on offense, but I thought that they would at least be balanced. And with their defense, a Marcus Freeman-led defense, they would be able to take care of business against teams they're supposed to beat, like Marshall. And then let's see what happens when you play someone like Lincoln Riley and the Trojans. Let's see what happens when Clemson comes to town, that sort of thing. This is a bad loss. Marcus Freeman 0-3 now, and I'm looking like the schedule, Jake, is not going to be getting any easier with Dabo Swinney and the boys coming to your house, and I think they have SC on the road. So again, Notre Dame, look, it's not going to be great this year. You have a brand new head coach who has never had head coaching experience before, but he is recruiting at a high level, and let's just see what happens.
Yeah, I know. It just shocks me. They're not able to run the ball. I mean, they weren't able to stop the run. Those are things that I did not think I was going to see with Marcus Freeman and this team. Because, look, I get it. The locker room loves you. That's great. But the scoreboard needs to love you too. You want to know how you make the locker room love you more? You win games. But I do understand you. Zone Par with the dono, $5. Said, was at the Texas game. Very proud of our O-line and D-line because I thought Bama was going to roll us 49-21. Agreed there. Again, where Notre Dame goes from here, we'll see. But the pressure is now on Marcus Freeman. I think the honeymoon is over a little bit, David, because, again, that's how it is in any new job. You come over, everybody loves you. You're doing great. Everybody's excited. Oh, no, you blew it a couple times. We got to see if you can really do it. I hope he gets back on the right track. A good Notre Dame is good for college football. Speaking about good for college football, Parity is, right? And I don't want to come on here and be like, hey, I told you so. But I just wish at least one time Texas A&M fans would listen to me and listen to you the whole offseason. And I'm not even at practice. We've said if you watch Haynes King and watch the way that he operated last year in the small sample size we had, I still question him as a passer and a decision maker. Well, the dude is panicking like Jodie Foster right now. I think they're going to find him in a panic room with a bunch of, dried foods and bottled water. At some point, you have to make the move. Now, is the offensive line for A&M great? No. Were they able to run the ball like they should against App State? No. But Haynes King is supposed to be the fixer. He's supposed to be the guy. They've got all these athletes around him. They've got a really good defense, which surprised me yesterday, the way they got absolutely run on. That shocked me the most. But at what point, if you're Jimbo, do you either say, all right, let's give Max Johnson a chance, or hell, Connor Wegman, the freshman, let's give him a chance. Haynes can't do it. If you can't do it against Sam Houston State and you can't do it against App State, you're sure as hell not going to do it against Arkansas. You won't score a field goal against Bama. You're playing them at their place, and they're super pissed about what happened last season. There's a reason I had A&M starting out 1-2 or 0-3 in the SEC. Yep. Now you've got to play Arkansas neutral site at Mississippi State. Good luck with that. And Bama at home. And everybody looked at me like I had an elbow growing out of my forehead. At the end of the day, Max Johnson needs to be given a shot. I don't understand why he wasn't given one yesterday. And all I've done is say it. And A&M fans, you don't know. You're not at practice. That's the saddest part. I'm not at practice, and I know that. Yeah, imagine if I was at practice.
Yeah, I had Texas A&M. We talked a lot about who's the third best team in the SEC, right? And I had Texas A&M. You had Arkansas. Blaine had Tennessee. That was under the assumption that Max Johnson would be coming in under Jimbo Fisher's tutelage. You still have A-Chain in the backfield. You play some of those younger guys, even though you're not going to win a whole lot of games just based off a number one freshman recruiting class or something like that. But I did try Appalachian State. I've seen it up close and personal, Jake. I was on that Michigan team, and look, I grew up in Statesboro where Georgia Southern and Appalachian State are big rivals. That's a proud program, and they deserve all the respect in the world. And I don't know how many more teams they have to beat before they actually start getting that. But on the Texas A&M front, look, I've dedicated much of my life to the quarterback position. Jimbo Fisher's dedicated more. Like you said, I'm not at practice. I have a hard time believing that Jimbo Fisher is there watching every single reps of these quarterbacks throwing the football and operating the offense, and has somehow like made a wrong decision, or is just saying, Haynes King's upside is just that much more valuable to me. I don't know what's going on, Jake, because I know what we're going to get with Mac Johnson. You're going to at least get an efficient quarterback. So are we just overhyping how much of the problem is the quarterback position?
No, I think it's obviously invaluable. Buster says enough SEC. We literally just talked about Notre Dame. So just give us 1 second. We got to keep going. Where's Blaine? He is under the weather. He'll be back tomorrow. But Cone, I don't think you can, undervalue the quarterback position. Again, we know how important it is. It sets the tone for the rest of the team. What was A&M's problem last year? Yeah, you had skill players outside that got beat up who didn't make great plays, but you have A-Chain, you had Weidermeyer, you had guys that were good enough to get you there, but you didn't have the quarterback. And at the end of the day, the team is going to go as the quarterback goes. I know that. Jimbo knows that. Jimbo's brother knows that. Every A&M fan knows that. And A&M has still yet, under the Jimbo regime, really, you could say Kellen Mond. He got Kellen Mond drafted, which was absolute witchcraft and wizardry. At the end of the day, though, he has had ample time to have a guy back there that's a difference maker. Because how do you win a national championship? Even Stetson Bennett was above average last year. He made above average plays. And some people will dispute that. Go back and look at the tape. It's a lot more than just about the throws you make. It's the checks you make and the chances you don't take. It's the times you check down to get you in 2nd and 5. You never go broke making a profit. It's just the truth. But at the end of the day, the problem to me is, for some reason, Jimbo's just stuck on Haynes King. I haven't seen somebody stuck on Haynes this much.
Yep.
Let's say put a magnet in the underwear section at Target.
Yep.
Like, he needs to get off of it.
And you saying that Jimbo Fisher has had ample time to not only recruit but also develop a high caliber quarterback at Texas A&M is exactly what I've been saying, and Michigan fans have been saying about Jim Harbaugh for the last 6-7 seasons. And that's just a natural segue into what we saw yesterday, Jake. Yeah. JJ McCarthy gets his first start. I understand that it was against Hawaii, but the kid goes 11 for 12 with the only incompletion was a drop pass, 230, 240 yards, something like that, 3 TDs. He is going to be the starter moving forward. Jim Harbaugh's already said that. Look, Cade McNamara, this is where we need you to be a true captain of the team. You got elected captain. Now we really need to see it. We need to see you backing up the guy. Because, Jake, what did I say? We need to see J.J. McCarthy in at least one game that he either starts or gets significant playing time, be a throw-first quarterback and not a run-first quarterback, because every single package and wrinkle that he was brought in to add was to run the ball. I think he had 1 rush yesterday, Jake. He went 11 for 12, 229, 3 TDs, and had like 1 rush. I know that it was against Hawaii.
Yards.
I know that it was against Hawaii. I know that it's basically a scrimmage, but he's proven that he can stand in the pocket and throw the ball. And then one comment on here in the Booster Club was, does Jim Harbaugh deserve an apology yet? I don't think we said anything about Jim Harbaugh that warrants us apologizing.
Well, who have they beaten?
It wasn't the decision to. It was. Look, what do I say to you, Jake? It's not what you say a lot of times, it's how you say it. Well, it's not the decision you make, it's how you go about it sometimes. It's just the eccentricity around the way Coach Harbaugh would announce a game 2 starter before week 1 is just really weird to me. He could have done the same thing without necessarily letting the media or letting the world know about it. But at the end of the day, I think Jim Harbaugh, at least, we're talking about Haynes King versus Max Johnson at Texas A&M. I think at least Jim Harbaugh did recognize J.J. McCarthy is going to be my starting quarterback, but the competition is close, and the other guy did win 12 games and take me to the playoff last season. It's a complicated situation, but if you're a Michigan fan, it's a good situation because you know the future now, and your backup is a team captain who can come in and lead if JJ gets hurt.
Yeah, well, number one, look, I don't care if it's Hawaii. I don't care if it's Alaska. I don't care if it's Alabama or Bishop Sycamore. It's hard to go 11 of 12 in a college football game. Now, I know Hawaii's bad, but again, about the Jim Harbaugh stuff, Cone, if JJ's this dog, then play him game 1. Like, if this is the guy, then play him game 1. You don't owe anybody any favors. Like, I know Cade saved your job and stuff like that. I get it. But if he's obviously pretty much really like that. Now, we've got to see it. Michigan has beaten no one. Okay? Michigan has beaten no one. So I don't think we can get on. And look, you should be excited. You've got talent. Ohio State, especially after the way Notre Dame looked yesterday. And I didn't think Ohio State looked overly dominant against Arkansas State. Shout out to the Sun Belt again. But if J.J. McCarthy was doing this type stuff, He should have been playing game 1 because now you lost. I know he came in later in the game, but you lost half a game's worth of chemistry he could be building for when you have to play somebody.
I understand.
And I know you do have time, but I'm with you, Cone. He's the head coach, right? We know Jim Harbaugh's been excellent with quarterbacks. But the way he went about this, to me, and again, they haven't beaten anybody, so it's not – if they would have just beaten, Ohio State yesterday, or if they would have beaten, let's say, for example, Alabama or Clemson or somebody, and he did like that, I would be the first one to come on here and say, you know what? We got to let Jim Harbaugh do Jim Harbaugh things. But until I see them beat somebody that's worth it, that is worth their salt, it's hard for me to get on the, you're right, Jim, you're 100% right. I still don't like the way he went about it. I don't like the way he said it was biblical. I just, at the end of the day, I'm not going to give him credit till I see Michigan beat somebody. Is Michigan the best team in the Big Ten? Maybe.
Yeah,
I just don't think we can say that yet.
Again, at least there's clarity now. You have to be excited if you're a Michigan fan. You have 2 good quarterbacks. It's not a problem. And then another thing, Jake, you always talk about, and you know better than anyone, having coached for a long time, the team is really, the foundation of the team is put together in spring practice.
Yes.
Not in fall camp. Fall camp is where you're really, you're pouring gasoline on what you already built in the spring. Well, J.J. McCarthy was hurt in the spring. Right. He had a shoulder injury. So
True.
I'm wondering if J.J. McCarthy had a full spring, if he would have then been able to take over the starting role a little bit easier in fall camp. But all of that is behind us now. He's going to get the start. My question is, again, late in the game, on the road, or, even at home, Michigan State, you're down 10 at the start of the 4th. Can we lead a game-winning drive against some of those Big Ten East schools where we're going to need to win the conference? Because you're not going to blow every single team out, and especially as it gets nearer to that Thanksgiving game that I always pay special attention to in the horseshoe.
Without a doubt. Travis Elrod asked, how did I know Texas State was going to cover that spread? They haven't had a winning season in a long time. Because I watched FIU, and they're garbage. They barely beat Bryant. Texas State isn't great, okay? But FIU barely beat Bryant. No, not the basketball team that made the NCAA tournament, okay? I watched FIU. They're a really bad football team. Thank you, Texas State, for covering. It was a 4-2 day for the kid. We can get excited about it. We doubled up. Again, I want 6-0. But Alabama – I can't get mad at myself for the Alabama bet. It was
Me
a good
neither.
Bet.
I missed that
bet.
one too.
The other one I missed, I missed that one, and God, I'm trying to remember the other one. I
missed Vandy. I thought Vandy would cover.
They tried early. They ran out of gas.
I missed Northwestern too, getting blown out by Duke.
Dude,
early.
Mike Elko and Duke. Shout out Mike Elko. Speaking of Texas A&M, the DC left goes over there. They're 2-0. But shout out to Washington State. One of the most surprising outcomes, obviously outside of Marshall Notre Dame, outside of App State, Texas A&M, was Wisconsin getting beat at home by Washington State. And if you look at the numbers, they're absolutely wild. Okay, Washington State, it's not going to shock you that their leading rusher had 33 yards, the Watson kid who actually transferred from Wisconsin. But when you look at Wisconsin, it wasn't like they had a horrible day on offense. They went 18. Graham Mertz, who's not exactly Joe Montana when it comes to passing, was 18-31, had 230, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Rushing wise, Braylon Allen had basically 100 yards, but they didn't rush for a touchdown. When they got down in the red zone or they got close, Wisconsin still has trouble punching it in. Why? Because they have one identity. And it wasn't like I said, Graham didn't have a bad game yesterday throwing. They have one identity. Wisconsin, to me, it continues to amaze me how they do not have one of the best passing games in the country because they run the ball so well. If you're a triple option team, I get it, right? Because formationally, the way it works, you're a true run team. Wisconsin runs the ball well enough. And it wasn't their best run game yesterday, but it was good enough, and it's been good enough in the past. Your play-action game, your boot game, your power pass game should be absolutely lights out, but it's not. And I think it's a mixture of Graham Mertz, and it's a mixture of the play calling, because Washington State is not a good football team. They played well yesterday. Wisconsin, from a roster standpoint, from a depth standpoint, from an ability to execute and even get away with things, is a much better team. But you got bounced 17-14 at home. You were the number 19 team in the country. And what a huge win for Washington State after all the stuff that's gone on with Rolovich and the vaccine. That one was a little bit sneaky, Cone.
When you talk about the Big Ten West and how that is a little bit, that is the weaker side of the conference, at least usually you can count on Wisconsin and Iowa to be good football teams. And what we're seeing right now is, man, I don't know if you can count on Wisconsin and Iowa over there. Purdue Purdue lost their opener against Penn State, and then Nebraska. Look, can I go ahead and get to Georgia Southern for a moment here? I need to give Georgia Southern some love. If we have new listeners on the show today, like I'm from Statesboro, Georgia. So when I grew up, Irk Russell was the head coach at Georgia Southern. Paul Johnson took over that mantle after. This program was competing for 1AA national championships every single season. And then, it sort of has fallen off over the past 15 years or so with an occasional good win here, winning the Sun Belt once there, But now Clay Helton comes in from Southern California. He has a big blowout win in his first game. And now you go to Lincoln and beat Nebraska. Also talking about the Big Ten West there, you beat Nebraska in your second game. Clay Helton just became the most popular man in Statesboro. I'm so proud of this program. I mean, that university paid our bills growing up. And so, look, Scott Frost, I don't even think it took this game.
Until October 1st.
I know, waiting till October 1st. The buyout gets cut in half. Yeah. And I don't even think it needed this game, Jake. I think it was going to happen either way. But, hats off to the Georgia Southern Eagles. This is the type of win that they needed. And Jake, I think Mr. Helton might be coming on the show soon.
Yeah, we got to get Coach Helton on the show. It was a huge win. We got Clint Lamb from Bama on 3 coming too tomorrow. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe button as well. Cone, again, you bring up Georgia Southern and Nebraska. I don't want to even waste too much time on Nebraska. It's done. The era's over. We had Mitch Sherman on, who's from The Athletic that covered them and said there's no chance they'd hire Hugh Freeze. Then you're stupid, in my opinion. We talk about fit. Oh, it's not a Nebraska fit. What? You know what a Nebraska fit is right now? Getting a coach that's going to get his ass beat on the regular. Like, what do you mean a fit? Guess what, Nebraska? This isn't 1975. Okay, this isn't 1990. You've tried the prodigal son quarterback of all time. You're not going to go out and get Tommy Frazier now to try and be the head coach. Nebraska needs to realize, hey, guess what? You may not be the prettiest girl at the dance anymore. Actually, you're 37 years old. You're hanging out with 23-year-olds and wearing stuff you probably shouldn't be wearing and taking shots all night. Like you're not in college anymore, Nebraska. We need to wake up. We need to go outside. We need to look in the mirror first. Okay, this is who I am. Mandy Moore, ABC. This is us. Maybe we should take a chance on a guy. How about Hugh Freeze?
Hey, hold on. Look what Emmanuel C said. Clay Helton should have just walked across the field and put on Scott Frost's headset and go to the locker room with the rest of the team.
Look, they'd have had a better shot. But again, Cone, and I don't want to spend too much time on Nebraska, but this whole we needed a Nebraska fit, y'all got to get over yourself. Mm-hmm. You got to get over it. You will never. It's like not moving on from an ex. All right, you're in a new relationship. Yeah, you love them, but still in the back of your mind, it's like, hey, we're still the best. We can do better, right? We can do better. This person doesn't have enough money. This person's not good looking enough. You're a 6 right now. You're a 6 right now walking around that's acting like a 9. There's nothing more annoying than a 6 that thinks they're the 9.
But this is the best thing that could have happened to Nebraska, right? Because we've said Scott Frost, after this first few weeks, Scott Frost is not the guy to lead you to the promised land. And if that is the case, then let's just go ahead and have a few games that just at least make Nebraska fans comfortable with that decision. What you don't want to see is Scott Frost and this Nebraska team this year do just well enough that it splits the fan base, right? Where it's like, well, I think maybe one more year. Let's go one more season. And the other half is like, no, it's time to move on. That's what you don't want to have happen. And that's where, look, a lot of Michigan fans were in that situation with Jim Harbaugh. I don't think Texas A&M fans are going to be there with Jimbo Fisher. He's going to be the guy. He's recruiting at the highest levels. But what you don't want to have for Nebraska is have the fan base split. I think after this loss right here and after the opening loss against Illinois, the Nebraska fan base is at least behind moving on from Scott Frost so that you can go make that next hire, because I refuse to believe that Nebraska football can't be great. They're going to get back to prominence at some point. Who's going to be the guy that gets them there?
I hope they do. Michael Gallette's tuning in from Japan. What's up, man? Stay safe over there. I appreciate you being able to join us live. Cone, I do want to get to a couple more. Guys, we're going to have an NFL preview at 11. We're going to throw out our bets as well, so make sure you come right back to the channel. I got a few bets I'm feeling really good about. Chiefs, Cardinals. But we'll talk about that later here at 11. BYU Baylor. Let's go through these pretty quick. BYU Baylor. I took BYU minus 2.5. They said, "Oh no, Romney's out. Oh no, Nakua's out," which is a big deal. What does BYU do at home? What did I say, Cone? Non-scheduling rule number 3: never schedule a team that's based on a religion. Nobody plays harder for longer than somebody that's trying to make it to the good part of the afterlife. That's just the truth. And BYU rallied the troops at home. Hit 2 bets in overtime yesterday. I had the under on Pittsburgh, Tennessee, which literally scared me more than Lurch answering the door after the first quarter, and Pittsburgh looking like the Harlem Globetrotters on offense when I thought they were going to be methodical. And then BYU -2.5 in overtime, super jacked, super tan. When it comes down to it, BYU just got some gamers. I thought the defense really stepped up because, look, Shapen, the quarterback for Baylor, he's a really good player. Baylor's going to be fine. They're going to be set up. They're going to be in good hands. But at the end of the day, BYU, I thought, out-physicaled them. Like Washington State out-physicaled Wisconsin. I thought BYU beat them at their own game, but it was so back and forth, Cone. These teams aren't separated by much. BYU, if that game's not at home, do they win? Who knows? I'm not, to quote Nick Saban, I'm not here for hypotheticals, but what a huge win. Another big one.
You called it.
BYU, I'm telling you.
Called it.
Going to continue to ride this train. They're dangerous, man. They're all
30
years old while everybody else is partying. They're paying mortgages and putting Christmas presents together.
You've been calling that one, man. I should have listened to you a little bit more just because I know how good Dave Aranda and that Baylor football team is. They beat a good team. And I'm telling you right now, Jake, if BYU is unbeaten at the end of the season, okay, and we have a lot of people looking around like, oh no, put a 1 or 2 loss such and such team in there. BYU shouldn't make the playoff, or let's don't even talk about them. I would encourage anyone who says that to go through and look at that schedule. Now they have a long ways to go because I think 10 out of the 12 of those games they play are just going to be dogfights, and this was one of them, and they won that game. Hats off to the BYU program, and they're going to just keep this train moving throughout the season.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be so interesting to watch them, the way they play, especially once they get Nakua back and Romney, who I'm sure will run for office when he gets done. I guess that's what they do over there. But the other bet I missed was Florida -3. Here's my problem with Florida, David. I'm going to try not to get pissed off about this. I'm going to really try. I'm going to really try. The game plan and the play calling from Florida yesterday was absolute hot, flaming garbage. And you know me, I don't typically come out and say this. I'm not going to come out and down coaches all the time unless they deserve it. You have Anthony Richardson. I watched you guys in the Utah game run zone read, and he never kept it, and when he did, he killed him. You have got to start running Anthony Richardson more. I know you want him to be a great passer. Okay, right now, he is an average passer with a big arm, a natural passer, but an average passer with a big arm, and his decision-making somewhat questionable. You know how you help that? You let your 6'4", 235-pound monster that runs 4.4, let him loose on the defense. Billy and them keep playing this so close to the vest, and they're treating him like he's Cade McNamara. No, that's my thing with Michigan, too. You got a Ferrari? Run the Ferrari. As a defensive guy, you know what scares the hell out of me? Cade McNamara doesn't scare me. The TJ Finley, these statues don't scare me. The guys that scare me are the guys that can win the play breaks down or in the zone read game or the RPO game. I'm more worried about the quarterback running, which messes with my eyes. So if I'm the nickel, you're running an RPO, you're in doubles, you're going to slant number 2. I'm watching you in the mesh. I'm scared to death that quarterback is going to keep it. And if he does, he can hit a home run. Florida is not using their weapons. Billy's trying to play too conservative with him in the run game, which would open up the pass game. I was so shocked at watching that. Yes, Emmanuel, the Florida pass rush was getting after Will Levis for the first half, and then they just kind of disappeared. Kentucky was without Chris Rodriguez. They didn't have a ton of weapons on the outside. If Florida just would have buried them when it was 16-7 after the safety and stop trying to get so damn cute with the ball, you got to tank. Run the tank. Billy got too cute. That's something he's got to learn. In the Power 5, dog, you got to let the players roll. You got to let them ride. It's not being crazy. I'm not saying 30 carries a game, but Cone, when it's a tight game and you need points, stop treating this guy like he's Tom Brady. That's not him. That's not his style.
No, you're right. Now, look, I think Florida's a little bit back on schedule now, right? Like, look, this is Billy Napier's first year. Huge win over Utah. Number 17. You were able to do what you wanted offensively. This is a really good Kentucky football team. So, Florida starting off 2-0 against those two teams, that was already going to be, the storyline of the weekend. I think they're a little bit back on schedule now, and Florida fans should still be excited about this season. I don't really think any game is out of reach. Look, I'm telling you, they could put together some sort of game plan that at least keeps it close in the fourth against Georgia, and they, maybe go and make that a good ball game. Take the Georgia game out of it, and then I especially think that every game is within reach for Florida this season. But I want to deal on the flip side of this, man. We got to talk about Mark Stoops, because what he's done at Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
You're one of my favorite sayings from you is Mark Stoops is the best coach in Lexington. You've said it since I met you, to be honest. And I'm starting to think that this guy might be one of my favorite coaches across the country. When you saw him tear up after that win, this is a guy that cares. He's a high character guy. He cares about turning, these young men into valuable members of our society. It's not all just about winning football games with him. And he's putting together a program there. I hope he sticks around Lexington for a long time, because it's really fun to watch Kentucky not just be competitive, but really fight for the SEC East. And on the Will Levis front, look, we've always known the kid can use his feet. We've known that he's a tough kid. I mean, taking that hit to the chin in the first half, popping back up and nodding his head, I always knew that's what we would get from Will Levis. But to watch him be accurate with the football and command the offense after that, that's really what I wanted to see early in this season from Will Levis. I'm more bullish on him now than I have been in the past. And I don't know, Jake. I mean, do you think Kentucky is out of that number 2 race in the SEC East?
When you watch them do what they did up front, because that's what it comes down to me. That's where the game's won and lost, and that's where Kentucky's bridged the gap. I think we got to think about what Mark Stoops has gone through kind of this offseason with John Calipari saying they're a basketball school. Now, what does Mark Stoops do? Okay, that's fine. We'll do it again in football. He's the most popular thing in Kentucky since KFC started, and he's got his own special blend of herbs and spices. Nobody has done less with more than John Calipari, and nobody has done more with less than Mark Stoops has. He has built that program up. He has a right to talk his ish, and I bet it is emotional, because you got Kentucky just beat Florida twice. There was a stretch, David, where Kentucky didn't beat Florida for 40 years. Like at the same time Moses wandered around the desert, Kentucky didn't beat Florida. Now they beat them back to back and just went to the swamp. Emmanuel C said, "Yeah, Jake, he's Anthony Richardson is a natural thrower of the ball. His passes are so clean and precise." What I mean by natural thrower of the ball is that he can take some off when he has to. Is he perfect at it? No, but it'd be different if he was the guy that was just out there throwing the ball 100 miles per hour all the time. It's not necessarily how throwing interceptions and going through reads and stuff like that. That's not what a natural pass
Throwing
is.
and passing are different things.
They're totally different
Throwing
things.
and passing are different things.
They're totally different things. That's why you see guys with different arm strengths make it to different levels. They're just totally different things. Accuracy is something different as well. I'm talking about the velocity and being able to adjust. Also, Conan, and look, I'm with you. Kentucky's going to continue to be dangerous. Starting to look a little bit like Kentucky and Tennessee there. Iowa State wins over Iowa. Look, like I said, when Florida was playing Utah, I saw that blue bird that landed by the orange traffic cone.
Yeah.
He looked at me. We locked eyes, took Florida by 3. They won by 3. Yesterday, driving down the gas station, going to get me a hot white bison mocha. What do I see? Redbird on the sidewalk, looking around, locks eyes with me. Iowa State by 4, I thought. They won by 3. Sometimes you got to trust the signs. All right, we live in the Matrix. I am going to every week find which animal is the glitch. I'm going to find them. It's worked 2 weeks in a row. I don't know what I'm going to see next week. Will I see a groundhog? Will I see a gopher? Hell, a Bengal tiger may run down here. I don't know. That's the way it's going. To be honest with you, I'm really feeling some Dr. Doolittle right now. That's kind of
okay.
That's how I'm feeling.
Well, I didn't see any animal signs to let me know who was going to win out of Iowa or Iowa State. All I saw was Iowa's week 1 performance to know to take the under. And that one certainly hit for me. So
hey, Conan, I do want to say True Seminoles said the SEC sucks. Well, I mean, y'all hadn't had a winning regular season since 2016. So
what was the comment?
He said the SEC sucks. I still think. No, look, did the SEC have a great day yesterday? I mean, Tennessee beat Pitt. That was a nice win. Ace team that won the ACC last year, they went up and beat them. I think there's a lot of questions about the ACC if Clemson can't get it figured out on offense. But I will say, Cone, Sam Hartman looked really good yesterday. You talked about Vanderbilt, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Thomas Shelby of college football comes in, and the Peaky Blinder boys do it once again.
That's going to be one of the better storylines of college football. When Sam Hartman, possibly missing the season because of the blood clot issue, comes back. If he's able to stay in and be healthy this season, I mean, look out for Wake Forest. I took Vandy with the points just because, well, I'm not that smart, I guess, but I didn't know if Sam Hartman would play the full game. Vandy's been looking like they want to, Mike Wright, Vanderbilt has a quarterback in Mike Wright. Now, there was a lot of elements yesterday. He dropped a couple snaps in the rain, but, I still thought maybe they could have a chance to cover here at home. home. But Wake Forest and Sam Hartman, that's going to be a great storyline to continue to watch. And then, yes, Tennessee over Pittsburgh. That is a good win on the road, Jake.
No, it really is. You look at Hendon Hooker, the way he was able to operate, the way they were able to fight, went through some adversity early. I was surprised. Look, Pittsburgh's offensive line's good. Their defensive line's good. We knew that coming in. Backyard brawl, they did have a couple extra days of rest, which always helps, even though, man, there were a lot of injuries in this game, and it wasn't just because Tennessee was going fast. But I was surprised Tennessee in the front seven wasn't able to slow down the run as much as I thought. We talked about the depth on defense for Tennessee. How good can these guys really be when you're going that fast? Is that going to be the difference to give them a chance to, not only finish second in the East, but maybe make a run for it? I worry about the front seven because Pittsburgh's not the best offensive line you're going to see. They're top probably 5 to 7. But to do what Tennessee wants, they're going to have to stop the run better. And that opened up the pass. Very fortunate that Slovis got hurt right before halftime. That was a very big play because then Patty Mayonnaise came in there and that dude struggled. made a couple good throws, but there was a big difference between him and Slovis. But all in all, Tennessee had to go up there and get a win. It's a great win on the road. Tennessee that started out unranked, proving the doubters wrong. Can they continue to do it, David, with that defense? Kind of what are your thoughts on Tennessee overall as a team? What do you think?
I think so. And what you said right when Josh Heupel got hired was, okay, well, we know that he's going to go fast on offense and we expect that the offense to have success. Can they keep up on the defensive side of the ball with how unbalanced it may be in times with a one-play touchdown here and then a 3-and-out, and a one-play touchdown there? I think what you saw from Tennessee yesterday is, hey, we can be physical on the road against another physical team. I think it's a great win. I think Tennessee fans need to be very proud of the direction Tennessee's headed. How about I do this real quick? I'm going to name some of the other top 25 matchups, and I want you to give me a 10 or 15-second soundbite on your thoughts on those games.
Hey, go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe too. If you like it and want to subscribe. If not, do it anyway.
Oklahoma 7-3 at halftime against Kent State. They ended up winning 33-3. Your thoughts on Venables and the Sooners?
Sleepwalking, you got to play better. They're still kind of feeling each other out. They did battle back from, I guess you could say adversity, but against Kent State, adversity, it shouldn't be there. I still got Oklahoma winning the Big 12. Dylan Gabriel, Jeff Levy, like that mix up. Still got to play better early.
Lincoln Riley and Southern Cal in a rivalry game against Stanford ended up winning 41-28. They covered. Your thoughts there?
Hey, look, USC is going to be really good at the skill position. We know that. It's going to come down to up front. They had a good day yesterday, but Stanford struggled with Colgate. And I'm not talking about them losing their toothpaste in their travel bag. That's an actual football team. David Shaw, to me, I think we got to start talking hot seat. They won't talk about hot seat because he'll be there be there forever, just like Pat Fitzgerald will be at Northwestern forever. Sometimes guys are just lifers. But again, you've got a Lamborghini Ferrari on the outside, but you've got a Pinto up front. How long will that last?
Utah put up 73. I know it was against Utah State, but what do you think about that bounce back performance there?
Angry. Southern Utah, again, is a team we played at South Alabama that we led off with. Utah was angry after last week, especially throwing the interception late, losing a game that now looks a lot more winnable than maybe people thought early. Again, look, Southern Utah was always going to get shredded, but they just happened to catch Utah at a very angry and upset time.
Miami was 10-7 over Southern Miss at halftime, ended up winning 30-7. Look, they're going to have Texas A&M soon, Jake. I've got my eyes on that game.
Looking ahead. You got caught looking ahead. I think what Will Hall's doing at Southern, I love Will. We've had Will on the show, a guy I got a ton of respect for. I think it's a great fit in Hattiesburg. Southern Miss came out to play. Miami was looking ahead at A&M. And if you're Miami, the worst thing that could have happened yesterday. A&M losing to App State. If A&M would have won that game late, they'd have been upset. They'd have been fired up. But now it's the redemption tour. You better change it fast. Everybody's walking on eggshells at practice. I'm scared. When's Dad coming home? Please don't tell him.
It's interesting you say that because the week after we lost to App State, we got blown out by Oregon. It was almost like
teams go home. 2 ways. They go one of two ways.
One of two ways. We got blown out. One of the worst home losses in Michigan history to Oregon. Then we reeled off 9 wins in a row and ended up beating Florida that year in Tim Tebow's Heisman year in the Citrus Bowl. College football, man. It's just that's the greatness.
Jonathan Herndon, we are excited for the Red River rivalry, bro.
Oh, no doubt. Actually, Darby Lou's going to be there. She gets to go to the Red River rivalry this year. Arkansas 44-30 over South Carolina. Gamecocks put up a fight. Spencer Rattler did some usual Spencer Rattler plays, but he also made some big plays. How good are you feeling about Arkansas right now?
Look, I feel as good about him as ever. The depth on defense a little bit in the secondary worries me. You got to get Catalan back, but you survived yesterday. Here's my thing. Look, did Spencer Rattler throw for 300? And I don't hate the kid. Okay, I don't. I just think he's overhyped, and I don't think he's a winner, and I think he's a front runner. I thought yesterday, though, he showed good gusto. I like the way he was acting on the sidelines. But look, when you throw for 370 yards and only one touchdown and 2 interceptions, that's a lot of yards, but your QBR was 54. You didn't have a great game. There was a lot of throws, too, down the field that Spencer overthrew. There was 2 touchdowns that he missed on top of what he had. I love KJ Jefferson. They've got to protect him, though. He gets beat up more than any quarterback I've ever seen in any game. Rocket Sanders is who we thought he was. Hazelwood has to be more physical on the jet sweeps, but I like the pieces that Arkansas has. I don't believe in Spencer Rattler. I did take South Carolina to go 2-6. They just lost to Arkansas, and guess what? Guess who you get next week at home? Georgia. And you're not going to walk away from that one with a bunch of smiles and Band-Aids. It's going to be bloody, and it's going to be a lot of upset people.
Josh Reagan with a good question here. Do you think that the parity that we've seen so far in college football this season is a byproduct of the transfer portal?
It's a great question. I do want to say Layman 74, Catalan's out for the season. I want to see if that is confirmed. It might have been. I was waiting to see that yesterday. I didn't hear anything during the game, and after it, there were so many games on. But you think the parity is because of the portal come? That's what you're asking.
Yes.
Yeah, I do think it's a big part because again, you can flip a team quicker. You can. I was worried that you were going to see a bunch of the lower level P5s just lose a ton of players to the portal because these bigger guys are going to come and try and take them all to supplement what they lost due to NFL draft or graduation. But what you've seen is kind of a blend of that, but also guys at the higher level going to some of these lower level Power Fives and totally flipping the ability of it. I'll give you one that started just with the transfer portal. Chase Rice leaves Duke, goes to App State. And you see that correlation and how that works. So I think it's been a good blend. Yes, I think the transfer portal is maybe having a better effect on parity than anybody thought, including myself, including Nick Saban. And I, for one, am here for it. And I'm excited about it, and it's good for the game.
Had a good one here. Hold on, let me find it. It's about the state of golly, the chat's moving fast. How about the state of Kansas from Aaron here? How about the state of Kansas?
Yeah.
Go Cats. I mean, look, that's Kansas State. That's going to be the biggest program that I got wrong in my predictions. I mean, with a 40-12 win over Missouri yesterday, they look good.
Yeah, I got them going, I think, 7-2 in the Big 12. Deuce Vaughn, Adrian Martinez looks a lot more comfortable. Still does some things that I don't like. Missouri held up early on defense, but once they realized they weren't going to be able to score a lot of points, it's like they just absolutely fell apart like a Post Malone single. But Kansas beating West Virginia. All of a sudden now in West Virginia, Cone, with JT Daniels and Neil Brown, country roads aren't taking you home. They're about to take you back to your original home because you're going to be fired. Very surprised to see that, but you got to tip your cap to Kansas. You talk about flipping a program, being able to go to West Virginia after they just lost the backyard brawl, knew they were going to try and rally the troops and circle the wagons or whatever cliche you want to use, but they put a 55 piece on that defense with extra biscuits and some honey. So you do got to give credit to the whole state of Kansas with Kansas State and with Kansas. And again, very, very interesting to watch. If Kansas can is Kansas going to end up being better than Nebraska? Is this going to happen? Like, is this something that's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years? That's what's scary if you want to be honest.
We're not talking about basketball.
No, hell no.
I mean, hats off to Kansas. Unacceptable from West Virginia. I really felt good about that minus 13.5, but I'll tell you, Kansas has come to play.
I did too. I felt good about it. I tell you what made me sick. I was going to buy Kansas State down to minus 6.5 and take it, and I talked myself out of it and talked myself into taking Florida on the alternate line -3. I hate that. Sometimes you just got to go with the gut. Cone, I do got a couple questions for you before we roll out of here. Remember, we are going to have our NFL preview today at 11. So I'm going to take an hour-and-a-half break. I'm going to see how many cups of coffee I can drink. My wife my fiance, soon-to-be wife, made muffins last night. So I'm really excited about eating one of those, blueberry and chocolate. Not a blueberry guy. Not a blueberry guy, never been a blueberry guy, had a really bad experience, don't want to talk about it. But I'll take chocolate chip muffins. Cone, my question for you, is Georgia number 1 after this week? Or is Bama number 1?
Who did I have number 1 in my preseason poll?
Georgia.
I did.
You did.
I did.
You
but
did.
In all fairness, it wasn't because I thought they were better than Alabama. It was because that's what I do when you're the defending national champion. Yes, I think so. I think you put Georgia number 1 again because it doesn't. What does it matter? Again, these polls, when we put these teams, I don't think it matters much. We're going to find out. We're going to find out. And those two teams are still destined to meet each other in Atlanta around my birthday in December. And I hope that we get to see that game. But Alabama has a lot to fix, Jake. And I'm surprised to say that because Yeah, you can look at week 1 and say, well, they played Utah State. What did you expect? Utah State won their conference last year. Utah State is not this bad football program, and it was how efficient Alabama looked. I really think yesterday was an anomaly. Again, the DB position and the wide receiver position, I think they have to get some of that grouping right. And you see how much not having someone like a Najee Harris hurt them. Right, because in some of those, in some of those third and short situations, or even 3rd and 5 and 6, you would have felt a lot more comfortable having Najee Harris there. You don't have that sort of back, but I think go ahead and put Georgia 1, sure, whatever. Alabama's still going to have to roll through an entire SEC West slate, and if they get through it unscathed, or even if they get through it with 1 loss, they're going to be in Atlanta, and we're going to see what's really going on.
For sure. That's what I'm saying. Everybody that's sleeping on Bama, if they'd have lost that game, that's one thing. But then barely winning it is one of the worst things that could happen to everybody else in the SEC, because now there's no convincing anymore. Garth Cassidy, $2 donor. Appreciate it, buddy. Have you heard anything on the Tyler Buckner injury? I have not. I'm going to keep looking at it, to be honest with you. I don't know if the guy throws the ball well enough. I know it's his second start. I get it. But he played a little bit last year. The game shouldn't be too big for him, especially Marshall. I do question his decision-making. I question his accuracy, because he misses in the worst places. He misses over the top, over the middle, and he misses on the inside, on the outside. Those are 2 places you cannot miss. Just like in baseball. If you're going to miss out. If you're going to miss out. Don't miss in. You miss in, it gets hit over the fence. If you're going to miss down. Don't miss up. You miss up, they hit it out of the stadium. By the way, Albert Pujols hit number 696.
696, baby.
We're getting close.
Yep.
Tony, just a couple more. Got a couple minutes here. Like I said, everybody hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Tell all your friends. Just some other games really quick to run through. We talked about Arkansas State. We talked about USC. I do want to give a shout out to Duke. Like you said, I do want to give a shout out as well, or actually an opposite shout out to Boise State. You guys did not cover. You blew it. I took you minus 19.5 at plus 115. You let New Mexico, who could barely get a first down, hit the flukest vert for a touchdown. Then you scored to put me in cover range, and you let them run the kickback. Andy Avalos, there's a lot of things I can forgive. There's a lot of devastating things I can forgive. But I, as a man, as a human, as a person, as a human being, will never forgive you, Andy Avalos. And there's nothing that you can do. I will never bet on you again. I hope you get coal in your stocking, and I'm sick of it. Anyway, by the way, Auburn's quarterback situation is an absolute dumpster fire.
Oh, I wanted to
TJ
get your
Finley
thoughts
can't
on
do
that.
it. Robbie Ashford, does he throw the ball well enough? Probably not. Calzada better be hurt. He better be hurt, or he must have just, decided to do something else with his life. You had all these players in the portal at quarterback, and you got Zach Calzada. Brian Harsin will be fired after this year. That Auburn team is not very good, and I'm starting to think. And look, I'll give him a chance. What did I say, Cone? They'll find a way to go 5-0.
Yeah.
Auburn will fluke around and beat Penn State. And they'll beat whoever the game 4, Alabama State, whoever it is. Then game 5, LSU will come to town, and there'll be like an earthquake as the final passes come in. It's like LSU guys running wide open. They'll fall down, and Auburn will somehow win. Then we'll lose basically every game but 1 or 2 at the end of the slate. The offensive line, garbage. The wide receiver group needs to play better. Auburn's defense yesterday, people thought that was going to be a strength. Cordero made Auburn's defense look so average. And if they didn't drop as many passes as they did, this game would have been even tighter. I know a win's a win, but Auburn is not, they're not any good. They're not good. They're not a good football team. And Brian Harsin, I hate to say it, I said the number was 8. I don't see how they win 8. I don't see it. And I hate to say that. I'd love to come on here and be like, Conan, I was wrong. Auburn's going to be better than expectations. But guess what? They're not. The offensive line is bad, David.
Got to find a way to beat Penn State. That's the one I'm really looking at. Got to find a way, because Penn State beat you at their place in a close game last season. You have to figure out a way to do the same to them at home in Jordan-Hare this season before you start that SEC West slate of games.
For sure. Kedrick Washington, thanks for the donation. $2. Hugh Freeze to Nebraska. Yes, they need to go from a frost to a freeze. I have coined that. I have trademarked that. You cannot use that. I think he'd be a great fit there. He'd be a guy that could turn him around. I saw in the chat, great comment, Texas Ed, maybe Gary Patterson to Nebraska, David? I don't think that'd be a bad fit.
Man, Gary Patterson. I didn't really think about that.
Texas Ed, that's a great call.
Again, maybe not to be like, is he going to build a program at Nebraska like Nick Saban's built at Alabama? Maybe not, but I'm telling you what, get Nebraska headed back in the right direction. Maybe he retires there and pass the baton off to someone else after he can get that program to a 10, maybe 11-win season again, sort of like Bo Pelini was able to do. Teams are going to start looking at Gary Patterson after yesterday.
No, for sure. And Green Soldier said before we go, Harsin is part to blame, but man, the boosters hurt him. Oh, look, that's done. Like that's it. You got to win. Like here's the thing: Auburn goes 5-7 this year. Guess what? A lot of people are going to be saying, Cone. Maybe the boosters were right. Maybe they were right. Maybe they knew. We'll see. We got a lot of season to go. But this whole blaming the boosters thing, the boosters aren't the ones that were busting coverages yesterday. The boosters aren't the ones that can't throw a pass or have a competent person at quarterback after 2 years at a place like Auburn. The boosters weren't the ones on the offensive line that were getting pushed back by the guys from San Jose State. That was Auburn's players, the players that are coached by Brian Harsin. So, again, what's sad, you know what Auburn could really use right now? Max Johnson. But he ended up going to a place where they already had a starter and a 5-star elite freshman. He could have came to Auburn and he'd have been Michael Vick compared to what Auburn has right now. It's absolutely crazy. And I know Calzada's probably beat up, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'll tell you a story. He's not much better. He's not much better. Calzada's not the savior of Auburn. You know who it is? He's on the roster. His name's Holden Gariner. Play him. Play him. Just play him. You should have played him against San Jose State. You're probably fired anyway, dog. Like, play him. Who knows? Can't be worse than TJ Finley, who makes worse decisions than the dude from Get Him to the Greek. Like, it just, at some point, you got to talk about the players. And I know it's week 2 and it's early, but man, Auburn looks just not athletic and strong. They look little and weak. It is what it is. I know you're 2-0, but yeah, you beat Mercer and we weren't in a courtroom, and you beat San Jose State and it wasn't a surfing competition. So to me, it means nothing. And it's just the truth, but it is what it is. Cone, great stuff, man. I'll see you here in a couple hours, guys. We are going to talk NFL preview. We're going to have our 6 NFL bets. I'm about to go down in the lab. I'm going to mix some milk with orange juice and see what comes up. Walk outside, see which animals want to tell me what's going on. Brett Stevens, real quick, asked Jake, if Quinn Ewers is healthy, do you see Texas winning the Big 12? They'd have a hell of a shot, but I don't think he's healthy. I don't think when you land on the shoulder like that, even though it's your non-throwing shoulder, it's so connected. You know this, Cone. You played the position at the highest level. Like it is going to keep bothering you. I'm more worried. I think Quinn's going to be out for a while. I'm more worried about Hudson Card. Like he was hurt, but like he to say with the kids, he thugged it out. He really did. Like he really did. So I think with Quinn, Texas's future is really bright, man. That they really are. I'm going to say, Green Soldier, I agree with you. I think it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks. It's either a shoulder. I don't think it was the elbow. It looked like a shoulder to me. Whether it's a pinched nerve, whether it was a dislocation, or whether there's a deep bruise in there or something with the labrum, you got to be really, really careful with a kid's arm like that, because the future at Texas is brighter than a Circuit City.
Hey, and big shout out to Hudson Card for coming off the bench and delivering the type of performance that he did. You know, that was your job last season. Now you sit behind Quinn Ewers. You're called into duty against the #1 team in the country when you're still in the ball game. I'm really glad to see that Texas was able to keep it close with their backup quarterback and not just get sort of blown out after Quinn Ewers went out, because that's really where we sort of get, I mean, look, Texas fans are going to still say, you know, what if, just like with the Colt McCoy in the national championship. But we haven't seen the last of Quinn Ewers, and you have to feel good if you're a Texas fan that you have the type of backup quarterback who can sit on the bench, come in the line of duty, deliver a big performance, and is a team guy.
Definitely. Last thing, Monty C asks, Jay, since you are connected to the animal world, what is your spirit animal? I would like to let everybody know right now that my spirit animal is the Tasmanian devil. Yes, there it is.
Wow.
There it is. Full disclosure. Close my eyes at night. I see him. I talk to him all the time. You know, it is what it is. All right. I spin in circles really fast, causing mini tornadoes and things that get messed up in rooms.
Here come the memes. Here come the Jake's face exactly on the Tasmanian devil memes.
Somebody will make a Twitter handle that Jake the Tasmanian devil. Somebody already made one. What did they say? They made one like Jake's chin. You have Cone's mustache. You have like 9.
Jake's analogies is the best.
The funny thing is, somebody was like, "Hey man, are y'all inventing these handles?" I'm like, "Listen, I promise you, I don't have enough emails
yeah, exactly.
to be able to do this. I'm not smart enough to be able to do it on my own."
Hey, but you know I'm being serious here, man. The Jake's analogies, I miss so many of your analogies when we're going during a show because there's so many different things going on. Sometimes I'll be reading that Twitter handle when he posts those, or whoever it is posts those, and I miss like half of them, and I'm just laughing.
Oh, dude, that's a great account. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. Like and subscribe. Sub on YouTube. Channel's really blowing up. We appreciate you guys. It's only week 2, and we've got NFL week 1 starting today. Come back at 11 Central. That's 12 Eastern. Man, I'm a genius. Appreciate you guys. David, great stuff, my friend. Blaine will be back tomorrow. He's a little bit under the weather, not just literally, but physically as well. Appreciate you guys so much. Hop back in the chat. Let's have some fun. Enjoy your football watching for today. And remember, with Crane & Company, you will always win the water cooler. And like Notre Dame's chances of not losing more than one game, we're gone.